All right, P552. It's Craig Robbins here, giving you guys a little snapshot of my coaching philosophy. Basically a little rundown from the paper that I wrote last week. So here we go. Just giving you a little background. Why do I coach? Well, first and foremost, I coach because I got to a point where I was just tired of sitting behind a desk wearing a tie, and I wanted something a little more out of life. And I feel like God led me in the direction of coaching. I felt like, what I was doing, working for the Dodgers and the athletic department at UCLA just wasn't gratifying enough, and I felt like I just wasn't being used in the way that he felt I needed to be. And so he moved me in a position of coaching ball. And so here I am today. I love coaching. I love, the challenges, the practice. Football is probably the only sport that you practice more than you play. We play once a week, the Monday through Friday, the grind, ups and downs, all that. You do all that just to, on Saturday, the highs and the lows. And if you come out victorious on that one day, it's like forever gratifying. So, that's first and foremost, that's why I do what I do. Secondly, the question was the importance of sport. I think sport is extremely important. Not only does it build character, it helps you with specific life challenges. One thing in regards to the game of football, we always talk about the element of teamwork. Football, I believe, is the only sport that the idea of teamwork is like truly prevalent. We have this thing on our team at Azusa Pacific. We talk about the 11-to-1 ratio. There's 11 positions on the football field, and each person who mans those 11 positions are responsible for doing a specific job. Now, a play isn't successful if one guy or two people are messing up. Each and every person has to do their job for a play to be successful. And in my paper, I used an example that the Patriots kind of model, and I got it from the radio announcer Colin Cowherd, where he talks about Ford Motors and the assembly line. Prior to the assembly line, it took 12 plus hours to build a car. And when they created assembly line, it narrowed everything down to a little over 2.5 hours to create a car. And that's having people in place doing specific jobs. So instead of being a guy responsible for every single part on the job, you had a guy that was responsible for the brakes, for the engine, for the steering wheel, all that to be more efficient and much faster to create these beautiful cars. And obviously things were more efficient, faster, profitable, all that, et cetera, et cetera. So I always, talk to my guys about that example just to kind of, tie things in of the importance of teamwork. So that's, and as far as the importance of sports, I felt like, that example, pretty much hit home. Process of learning. One thing we do on our team, and I like this and I adopted it from our coach, is a lot of coaches like to have all these multitudes of different techniques and schemes. Well, we focus on the vital few. And the vital few is essentially a concept adopted from Motorola, essentially like the leaders of Motorola back in the day in the early 2000s when Motorola was booming, and they had different phones and all these type of new gadgets and gadgets, technology, and they were groundbreaking, so to speak. But not a lot of people knew that the numbers that weren't adding up, because for every cool little device that they were creating, they were hurting with returns and defects and all that. So they had so many things that they were constructing that they didn't focus on just little individual things. So they had all these different defects. Well, the vital few specifically talks about just focusing on specific techniques to help your business or your team be successful. And so we focus on, like, for example, I coach the running back, so we, our vital few, we're not specifically focused on the plethora of different drills that are out there, but we try to keep it simple as, our footwork, how we carry the ball, our ball security is most important, our blocking technique, our transitional movement, and our ability to compete. So we try to, keep it simple with those 5 basic elements, and we just hone in those things, and we try to perfect our craft and being good at simple, essentially. The next thing is talking about goals and objectives, and how do we measure that. I necessarily try not to get caught up in wins and losses. I know it sounds kind of cliche, but I've adopted the Nick Saban, Alabama head coach philosophy of just trusting the process. And like wins and losses are, cool, or wins are cool, but at the end of the day, it's just a data point. And really, the way to measure success is your team growing? Are your players making, the similar mistakes that they've made before? Are they correcting themselves on the board or on the practice field from when they, early in the season? So I like to look at things as far as measurements and how the team has grown opposed to us winning and losing. I know it may sound, at the end of the day, we're in a results-driven industry, and wins and losses matter. But in my case, I focus on, how guys are evolving from a developmental standpoint and understanding the concepts. And then lastly, just my personal statement as far as coaching. I love what I do. I thank God that He put me in this position to coach and change lives. I wouldn't change this for anything in the world. I've made, a significant living, working in the Dodger front office, and I've never been more happy in my life coaching, and I'm making very much money. But in this, I'd like to leave a legacy that was a guy who cared, a guy who was passionate about what he did, and displayed that with how he treated his family, how he came to work every day, and how he was, a coach that was just willing to do any and everything for his players first and foremost. And then, lastly, obviously, I want to be a guy who wins football games. But but at the end of the day, it's about seeing the development of young men grow and, to become guys where I would feel comfortable enough to be like, hey, I want my daughters to marry guys like, that come through my program and I help develop. So that's that in a nutshell.